Rana Bahadur Shah was born on 25th of May 1775, Basantapur, Nepal, to Pratap Singh Saha and Rajendra Lakshmi Devi Shah. Rana Bahadur Shah succeeded to the throne at the age of 2 when his father, Pratap Singh Saha, son of Prithvi Narayan Shah, died prematurely in 1777 at the age of 26 due to excessive bleeding after ruling for only 36 months. Queen Rajendra Lakshmi, the mother of Rana Bahadur Shah, acted as Rana Bahadur's regent till 1785 before dying of tuberculosis, followed by his paternal uncle Bahadur Shah, who expanded Nepal's territories till 1794. In the year 1794 AD, when King Rana Bahadur Shah attained the age of 20 years, he removed Bahadur Shah from the regency and began to rule personally. In course of time, Rana Bahadur Shah increased the land revenue in the country, which was opposed by the people. Bahadur Shah also opposed it. So King Rana Bahadur Shah became angry with Bahadur Shah. King Rana Bahadur Shah asked Bahadur Shah to submit the account of Nepal-Tibet war expenses. Bahadur Shah was accused of spending more on these wars. For the same reason, Bahadur Shah was taken prisoner near Bisnumati. While in jail, hot oil was sprinkled on his body under the direction of then King Rana Bahadur Shah. And then later, Bahadur Shah was secretly assassinated. A heroic and intelligent leader like Bahadur Shah was recently killed in jail due to the reign of Rana Bahadur Shah, who took power after the assassination of Bahadur Shah but did not know how to rule. He was a fickle. Historians have described Rana Bahadur Shah as irritational, hasty, short-tempered, and short-sighted. During his tenure, Nepal suffered for a very long time. The balance of foreign relations deteriorated. The heroes who built Nepal had to lose their lives without any substantive work. He was very eccentric in nature. Rana Bahadur Shah took swift and bold steps to break the orthodox and superstitious practices of the society, but faced stern opposition from the conservative society. One of the reasons of such revolt was the king's marriage to a Brahmin widow, Kantiwati. Rana Bahadur Shah had 2 legitimate wives before marrying Kantiwati. His first wife was Rajeshwari Devi, with whom he got 1 daughter. His second wife was Subarnaprabha Devi, with whom he begot 2 sons, Ranodyat Saha and Samsher Saha. Not much had been written about Kantiwati Devi Mishra. The existing text referred to Kanti Devi as a young Maithili Brahmin widow who had come to the Pashupatinath temple in Kathmandu. In mid-1795, Rana Bahadur Shah became infatuated with a Maithili Brahmin widow, Kantiwati Jha. Kantiwati, living as a widow after child marriage, was spotted by King Rana Bahadur Shah while on a pilgrimage. Rana Bahadur Shah had married her, promising to make her child his successor. Kantiwati was the 3rd woman whom Rana Bahadur Shah had married. She was a daughter of Brahmin belonging to the Mishra caste. The marriage of Kanti Devi was the result of a romance. It was from this Brahmin woman a son was born to Rana Bahadur Shah in 1797. The child was named Girvan Yuddha Bir Bikram Shah, who was proclaimed the heir to the throne. Ranodyat Shah was the eldest male heir apparent to Rana Bahadur Shah, but was not declared their heir to the throne because Ranodyat's mother Subarnaprabha was only a concubine according to King Rana Bahadur Shah. The inscription on a big bell installed by Rana Bahadur Shah at Hanumandhuka Palace in Kathmandu refers to Subarnaprabha as Bhogya Rani, or simply a concubine. Rana Bahadur Shah married a widow, Kantiwati, at the time when it was still considered a taboo. In 1797, Girvan Yuddha Bikram Shah was born from Rana Bahadur Shah and Kantiwati and was immediately declared the crown prince. Such acts earned Rana Bahadur Shah notoriety both among courtiers and common people, especially among Brahmins. However, a nobody had dared their voice opposition to the king. This anti-traditional step initiated by Rana Bahadur Shah were opposed in different ways. Brahmin astrologers predicted that the immoral relationship between the king and Kantiwati would not last long and that either the king or Kantiwati would die soon. Rana Bahadur Shah began to doubt whether Crown Prince Girvan Yuddha Bikram Shah would be able to ascend the throne after his death if the crisis prolonged. To make sure that Girvan Yuddha succeeded to the throne while Kantiwati was still alive, Rana Bahadur, aged just 23, abdicated in favor of their son on 8th of March 1799, placing his first wife, Rajeshwari, as the regent. Rana Bahadur Shah thought it would be wise if he enthroned his son, Girvan Yuddha Bikram Shah, while he was still alive. After his retirement, Rana Bahadur Shah changed his name and declared himself Swami Nirgunanda and started living in the temples of the valley. Rana Bahadur Shah was now addressed as Swami Maharaj, the Saint King. This move was also supported by all his courtiers who were discontented with his wanton and capricious behavior. Bhimsen Thapa, son of Amar Singh Thapa, was appointed as a bodyguard of ex-king Rana Bahadur Shah. After that, Kantiwati also retired and started living with Rana Bahadur. Meanwhile, Kantiwati contracted tuberculosis, an incurable disease at that time. It was advised by physicians and Brahmins that she perform ascetic penances to cure herself. He had organized various pujas, rituals in honor or pledge to the gods, wishing good health for Kantiwati, while many physicians were also consulted. For the treatment of the disease, Rana Bahadur gave alms to the Brahmins and even worshipped many gods and goddesses. However, Kantiwati's life could not be saved. After Kantiwati's death, Rana Bahadur Shah lost his consciousness. Rana Bahadur Shah became mad with sorrow. Rana Bahadur Shah smashed many idols to pieces, including Taliju. Similarly, he ordered the destruction of many statues of gods and goddesses around the valley. Rana Bahadur took back all the wealth he had donated to the Brahmins and ordered the destruction of the temples of the deities he had worshipped. However, Rana Bahadur's renunciation lasted only a few months. After the inevitable death of Kantiwati, he then renounced his ascetic life and attempted to reassert his royal authority. This led to a direct conflict with most of the courtiers who had pledged a holy oath of allegiance to the legitimate king, Girvan Yuddha Bikram Shah. This conflict eventually led to the establishment of a dual government and to an imminent civil war, with Damodar Pandey leading the military force against the dissenting ex-king and his group. Since most of the military officers had sided with the courtiers, Rana Bahadur realized that his authority could not be re-established, and he was forced to flee to the British-controlled city of Varanasi, India, in May of 1800. Rana Bahadur Shah's best friend and advisor, Bhimsen Thapa, also accompanied him to Varanasi. In Varanasi, Rana Bahadur Shah had sold all his jewelries to support his dissipation and had acquired many new wives and concubines. He regularly mistreated Rajeshwari and once even humiliated her in public before a prostitute. so her sense of frustration could have made her leave Varanasi. But at the same time, there is also evidence to support that Rana Bahadur sent her back to Kathmandu with a political motive. Rana Bahadur had borrowed a lot of money from many different people, rupees 60,000 from Dwarikadas, rupees 1 lakh from Raja Shivalal Dubey, rupees 1,400 from Ambasankar Bhatnagar. Similarly, he had borrowed a lot of money from the East India Company as well. However, Rana Bahadur was reckless in the manner he spent the borrowed money. For instance, he had once given an of rupees 500 to a Brahmin. During the minority of the king Girvan Yuddha Bikram Shaha, Damodar Pandey took over the administration as the Mukhtiar, or Prime Minister, with the complete control over administration and the power to conduct foreign affairs. The main policy of Damodar Pandey was to protect the young king by keeping his unpredictable father in Banaras. By 1804, this policy had failed. The former king, Rana Bahadur Shah, engineered his return and took over the position of Mukhtiar with the help of Bhimsen Thapa. Damodar Pandey was executed and replaced by Bhimsen Thapa as chief administrator, Qazi. Rana Bahadur Shah came back to Nepal with the assistance of Sardar Bhimsen Thapa and other advisors. He then confiscated the birthland of Brahmin and Guthi land and assigned them to the army, which again made him unpopular among Brahmins. Around 1804, Rana Bahadur Shah married Kantiwati's sister Chandravati for the fourth time. On April 25th of 1806, Rana Bahadur Shah was holding a court at the residence of Qazi Tribhuvan. On the evening of 25th of April 1806, at 10 p.m. in the house of Qazi Tribhuvan, the court was sitting on the financial issue. Bhimsen Thapa had ordered his subordinates to make Chautariya Sher Bahadur Shah and Qazi Narasimha Gurung present. Sher Bahadur Shah was the son of King Pratap Singh Shah and Moizukanya. Sher Bahadur Shah was the stepbrother of King Rana Bahadur Shah. Sher Bahadur Shah was in the womb when King Pratap Singh Shah died. After the birth of Sher Bahadur Shah, Rajendra Lakshmi sent Sati to Sher Bahadur Shah's mother, Moizukanya. Just as the trial was about to begin, Qazi Bhimsen Thapa came out of the auditorium saying he is going to eat. In the court, Rana Bahadur accused Qazi Tribhuvan Khawas of taking rupees 18,000 from the state treasury and the involvement of Chautariya Sher Bahadur Shah and other present for corruption. Rana Bahadur Shah ordered to kill Tribhuvan Khawas and cut out Sher Bahadur Shah's eyes. Sher Bahadur Shah, in fit of rage, attacked Rana Bahadur Shah with his sword. Rana Bahadur Shah, who had been stabbed, called his bodyguard Bal Narsim Kumar. Immediately, the king's bodyguard Bal Narsim Kumar drew his sword and killed Sher Bahadur Shah. The assassin of the former king, Sher Bahadur, also died there. The then Qazi Bhimsen Thapa started an investigation into the incident. Those convicted were sentenced to death at Bhandarkal Garden, in which 93 people were killed. Those sentenced to death were mainly Sher Bahadur Shah's henchmen, including Qazi Tribhuvan Khawas and Qazi Narasimha Gurung. Those two bodyguards of Sher Bahadur Shah were immediately cut off, and a series of assassination began. Qazi Tribhuvan Khawas and Narasimha Gurung were arrested. Sher Bahadur's brother Bidur Shah was taken into custody. Palpali king Prithvi Pal Sen and his brother were taken in custody. Maharani Raj Rajeshwari in Helambu was also called and sent Sati. Even the minor sons of Bidur Shah were killed. The grandchildren of Tribhuvan Khawas were also killed in the river Bisnumati. All the sons of Sher Bahadur Shah, Bidur Shah, Tribhuvan Khawas, and Narsingh Gurung, aged 2 to 15 were beheaded by the bank of Bishnumati. Their wives and daughters were given to the untouchables. Their bodyguards and servants were also put to death, and all their properties were seized. Their dead bodies were not allowed funeral rites and were dragged and thrown by the bank of Bishnumati to be eaten by the vultures and jackals. Even King Prithvipal Sen of Palpa, who was under house arrest in Patan Darbar, were swiftly rounded up and killed in Bhandarkal. 18 bodyguards of the Palpali king also lost their lives. The next day, 13 others were killed. The killings continued for 2 weeks, killing 16 women and 77 men. It did not leave children or the elderly sleeping at night. Bhimsen Thapa killed his opponents from a 2-year-old boy to a 70-year-old man. Bhimsen Thapa managed to kill everyone who did not agree with him or anyone who could potentially become a problem for him in the future. This massacre was an event in political change in the history of Nepal. Power and authority were now transferred from the royal family to the prime minister. The role of the royal family was diminishing. Except Lalit Tripura Sundari and Maharani Suvarna Prabhadevi, all the queens and their illegitimate wives and their caretakers were sent to Sati with the dead body of Rana Bahadur Shah. Almost 1.5 months before the massacre, upon Bhimsen Thapa's insistence, Rana Bahadur, then 31-year-old, had married a 14-year-old girl named Lalit Tripura Sundari on 7th of March 1806, making her his 5th legitimate wife. She was daughter of Qazi Nain Singh Thapa, brother of Bhimsen Thapa. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Bhimsen Thapa became prime minister and the junior queen Lalit Tripura Sundari became regent. Bhimsen Thapa became the first person outside the royal household to hold the position of Mukhtiar or prime minister. Bhimsen Thapa, who became powerful, became stronger than the king and ruled Nepal for about 31 years.